My camera's dead again. We need more power. What kind of system should we get?
How do you know what type of solar system you should get? Especially if you're in a vehicle, a sedan, an SUV, a minivan, and you're just starting out. I've rented camping equipment from a university recreation department before and really appreciated being able to try something before I purchased something else. Wouldn't that be great if you could do that with a solar system? If you know somebody with one, try it out for a day or two. If you can afford to rent a van from an outfit that does that kind of thing, just to know, get a taste of what your usage would be, that's going a long way to help you figure out what you should get. There are all kinds of websites and cheat sheets and spreadsheets that can walk you through supposedly helping you make those decisions. For me, I always learn best by watching somebody else do it up close and personal. I'm going to walk you through my solar journey, the choices and regrettable decisions that I made that make up my personal learning curve, and hopefully you can take some valuable information from that. I started out as a very, very minimalist. No fridge, a Jackery portable power station, and a Jackery solar panel. For cooking, I started out with a Kelly kettle, and while I appreciated the ability to boil water in practically seconds, I also recognized that it wasn't going to be convenient or efficient or even possible using it inside a vehicle. So I switched to a butane stove and used that for quite a while, but after several trips out, I noticed that I wasn't cooking. I was just buying things from delis and making fresh food without having to cook much. So eventually I got rid of that too. I made a video that documented how many watt hours each of the devices that I did use used up, how much juice I was using. Since that time, about a year and a half ago, I've upgraded a few things. One of them being, I stopped using the immersion heater because it depended on what kind of cigarette lighter / DC port I plugged it into, whether it worked or not. And I just didn't want to have to wonder, is it going to work today? I also had some consistent problems with Jackery products. The battery stopped charging, and luckily the company was willing to send me another one. I got it, and the cord that I plugged in for a USB-A end to charge devices, I pulled it out, and the mechanism inside the power station came with it. Not good. This is my original Jackery station, 293 watt hours and 500 surge. Those will be important here in a minute. Then the panel that I gotten with the original power station just stopped. Just dead. Also got that replaced, but by this time I had a bad taste in my mouth for Jackery products. I upgraded to a Bluetti power station. However, at that time, I wasn't as knowledgeable about the numbers that they provide for how many watt hours the product can handle and what's the top range that the surge will take. The Jackery had 293 watt hours and surge of 500. I misread the Bluetti information and keyed in on the 600 thinking that was watt hours. Nope, I was actually getting 25 fewer watt hours than the Jackery with the Bluetti. After realizing and correcting my learning curve on what those numbers actually mean on the portable power packs, I again upgraded to an Anchor battery. It comes with 512 watt hours, 750 surge, and some really great stats on customer service. Another upgrade was after getting really tired of needing to babysit a portable solar panel and finding a public space that I could reasonably do that kind of thing. I decided to put a permanent rigid panel on my SUV's roof. I've been using that for about a year now. I've had no problems and love, love, love it. And because I had that much more power, I decided to invest in the silicone water kettle. All it does is heat water, at least that's the intention. I'm sure folks do things otherwise, but I don't. It does pull a lot of power, but I only need it to be on for a few minutes, and that takes the place of the unreliable immersion heater. So based on my minimalist non-refrigerator usage of solar power, I would classify myself as a light user. Coming up with my own spreadsheet for calculating my needs in that light category.
This is nothing special, just using my rudimentary Excel skills to have the watt hours add up for me in that last column. This represents top usage for a day. Not that I always use that much.
But let's say someday I decide I really would like to have a refrigerator. I really kind of doubt it, but let's just for argument's sake say I do, which would bump me up to a medium user category. Nothing much else would change in terms of juice being consumed. So this is what that calculation would look like.
Adding a fridge is significantly more of a power draw, and it's going to make a big difference whether I decide to leave it on 24 hours a day or only when I'm awake.
And now here's where things get interesting. Because I'm using so much more power on a regular basis, am I under-paneled now? Part of that consideration is how often do I need to replenish that portable power station? And by the way, so far we're still talking about lithium batteries, so you don't have to worry about going below 50%. It's recommended that you don't go below 20 before you start replenishing your supply. And also, how often do you need to recharge? Every day? Every 3 days? Are you going to do it while you're driving? Are you a boondocker? So you're going to be relying on the weather, the time of year, and the latitude where you are, which controls the slant, I guess, I don't know if that's a technical term, of the sun and how much you're going to be getting to replenish your supply.
So I went from being able to replenish the watt hours that I used with a 100-watt panel in 6 hours of optimum sun, which rarely happens, to nearly 9 hours of charging time if I'm sticking with that 100-watt panel.
So, step 1, determine the amount of juice that you're going to use on a regular basis. 2, what size battery, and paying attention to the watt hours and the surge number so you make sure you get enough. And 3, are you adequately paneled? If I were going to acquire that refrigerator, and I would make sure that it was DC or able to be plugged in with a cigarette lighter because that takes 20% less power, I would probably need a 200-watt solar panel now because I wouldn't want to have to sit in the sun for maybe 2 days to recharge my battery. And that's probably not going to work for keeping the food cold, which is why I got the refrigerator in the first place.
Upgrading to a 200-watt panel when acquiring a refrigerator significantly lowers the number of hours needed to replace that juice.
So in those calculations you're making about how much juice you actually use, You probably want to bump it up about 20% to make sure that you're adequately paneled. And you want to keep in mind where you're going to be most of the time. If you're going to be in the southern regions where there's more sun, you're probably fine. If you're going to be traveling around the country, even in Colorado, makes a big difference. This probably goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Take a look at that list of usage. Do you really need all of those devices? To have some peace of mind about your system being adequate for your needs, maybe taking a look at that usage and being a little cutthroat about what you actually use, maybe in the cards. Not to mention the costs involved with having larger and larger needs and systems and components that eventually will need to be replaced. It's a consideration.
What happens when you add a Starlink to the mix? Coming up, part 2 of avoiding regrettable solar decisions.
We worked our week, we need a day, 24-hour day